And today, just so you all know, the presence in ad philosophy is a patented technology, and it's used by every major auto publisher today. Autotrader.com, Cars.com, Cars Direct, Car Soup, Edmunds, Every Car Listed, KBB, Sell My Car, UseCars.com, all embrace the technology. But to make it work, you have to be there, and that's not always easy. So 6 years ago, when I was selling the product, it was really important for me to be present. Because if I was out making presentations, I needed to make sure that I was there if people were going to ask me to communicate via instant messaging. So I got a wireless card, and I took that wireless card in my computer everywhere I went. My son at the time was 11. He sat shotgun on the way to soccer practice. I made him move the mouse and keyboard to keep me present. One day a chat comes in. He said, "Dad, this guy just said hola." I said bonjour. He was taking French. I thought that was really cool. I took my laptop to the supermarket. I took it to the doctor's office, even during checkups. I took it to my kids' sporting events. I had to take it with me. The only place I couldn't take it was church. So I just stopped going there because I wanted to be present. It was that important to me, and I'm trying to get that message out to the dealers. I thought of this. I speak to a lot of customers, a lot of dealers, and I hear three common concerns, if you will, all the time. And the first is creating the best possible customer experience. And when I think of customer experience, I think of a lot of things. I think about retaining the best people that work for you, because the better the person that works for you, the better customer experience that they will provide. I think of the lower level person that you just brought in, developing new talent. We got to get them to a level where they can provide the best possible customer experience, and that is really hard. I think about reviews, how important it is to get good reviews for sales and service, and how important it is to respond to bad reviews. All of those things have to do with customer experience, and your OEMs pay a lot of attention to customer experience. The second one's very obvious: increasing sales, controlling cost. It's on the mind of every owner, every general manager. And the last one is creating more opportunity from your marketing efforts. And that's been around since dealers have been in business. We spend so much money. What are we getting from those ads that we put out there? And what do we do with them when we get them? Three numbers I want to get you thinking. Does anyone know where the 97% came from or what it represents? Can anybody take a shot at that? I'll give you a hint. It was posted by etailing.com. I saw Eric here. I think Dadium would probably report something similar to this. It's actually the number of people that don't communicate with us on our websites. So they come to the website as perhaps a virtual up, but they leave invisible. They did not identify themselves. Autotrader, Cars.com are reporting stats as high as 90% of customers remain invisible till the day that they show up to your dealership. But it's not like they're not doing anything. They're doing stuff, which is the second number. Does anyone know what the second number represents? Give you a hint. Brian Pash, for the last 2 years, talked about that number. Google talks about that number. Anybody? ZMA. Yes, ZMA. So the average, were you going to say that? The average customer today, they say, is looking at 18 sources of information and spending 18 to 19 hours online. The younger the person, the more time they're spending online looking at cars. So that's a lot of sources that people are using. And how about the last number? That's probably the hardest one. Came off of the Accenture Automotive study in Q4 of last year. It stated that 68% of customers welcome the opportunity to have a text-based communication with a car dealer. And today, only about 28% of all dealers actually have chat on their website, and less than 1% of customers today, or dealers today, have chat on their mobile website. That's what the three numbers represent. I wanted to take you, I'd really love to draw this, but it's very difficult to draw. But I thought I would take you through the evolution of communication in our industry. So if we go back pre-internet, much of what we did as shoppers is we would go into the dealership, we would read periodicals, and try to research our next car. A lot of belly-to-belly relationships were really important at the time. And then perhaps 20 years ago, the web was born, Web 1.0. Back in the day, it was Yahoo and AOL. They were kings of the hill back at that time. Email was born in that era. Dealers initially resisted email, then they hired people just to do email. And today, if you're not doing email, you're not a car dealer. And then Web 2.0 was born. So we're still in Web 2.0 very much, but we are moving rapidly into the next level. Web 2.0 was the social revolution. Companies like Facebook were born, Twitter. Dealers built websites. And I can remember dealers not resisting, right, that challenge to build a website. And today, if you don't have a website, you're not a dealer. Chat was born somewhere between Web 1.0 and Web 2.0. Adopted by consumers, but not adopted by dealers. In Web 2.0, it was adopted by publishers, but not so much by dealers. Now we're in Web 3.0. And there's 5 or 6 characteristics of Web 3.0 that are very different. And most consumers and most of us live in a Web 3.0 world. The biggest thing, the number one thing in Web 3.0 is real time. It's right now. We don't want to wait for anything. Is that fair enough? Do you all agree with that? The second is this big fancy word called ubiquitous. And I discovered that word. But that word represents constantly connected, always with you, everywhere you go. It's part of what we are today. It's this device. That's ubiquitous. So we live in that world today. Location aware, sensors, high quality camera and audio. Also in Web 3.0 are mobile websites. They say today 68% of consumers are using their mobile devices to search at some point during those 18 to 19 hours, during those 18-some sources. That's the Web 3.0 world. Imagine me going through an airport, going through security. You walk in and you put your feet on those yellow footprints and you're standing there like this. You have to put your hands over your head and you're about to get scanned. It's at that point that you realize that you left your cell phone in the car. And you're standing there, and as that boom comes around your face, what does your face look like? Here's my face. How many of you would get out of security, take the shuttle back to your car, run to your car, seat on the front seat, your heart starts to calm down, you hug your phone, you book another flight, maybe pay the extra money. Would anybody actually do that? Yeah, I would. And we haven't even missed a phone call yet. It's that fear of not being ready right now. It's the fear of just being disconnected. I mean, do you ever just drive to the supermarket and leave your cell phone at home? I mean, if you do, you shake. You're like, God, should I go back and get it? So our customers live in that world, but our dealers do not. We are not there yet. So now let's look at the customer. Using their computers to search. I think of all the money that's spent on SEO and SEM and advertising, and I look at it this way. It's like throwing a party at your house, and that 97% number that I threw out there, all those people are there, and we don't open the door to invite them in. How would you feel going to a party and no one opened the door to let you in? So people have needs. There's a need to communicate, but sometimes they can't get in. We know through the third-party companies, AutoTrader, Cars.com, that whole network, that there's massive search happening during the day. We also know that search through third-party, because we track the numbers, you will see the dealer's presence, their online percent. Typically, it's about 10% higher on average at the dealership with the dealership chat versus the third-party chat. Because at some point, the dealers go home, but the customers continue at a rate of about 10% to continue to search. So 10% of that day is customer searching when dealers aren't there. So keep that in the back of your mind. And then text now, that started about 3 years ago. Text-based communication has exceeded phone calls in our country. So before we go any further, we have to look at the customer, because customers today are empowered like never before with real-time information at their fingertips. They can maintain their anonymity and stay in control of the buying process in ways that were never possible in the past. For dealers, resisting this reality and challenging the demands of that real-time shopper is a risky proposition. Despite that reality, many dealerships are locked into legacy structures that were put in place to deal with the internet shopper, and the delta between the type of engagement, access, and responsiveness the real-time shopper demands and how dealers are prepared to respond can be extremely wide. So my presentation is about narrowing or even eliminating the gap between "we will get back to you later when the time is right for us" here at the dealership to "okay, let's communicate right now on your terms. Chat if you want to, text if you want to, when the time is right for you." The question is it the right time? That's what everybody's thinking. The third-party research companies have been shouting out to us for the past 2 years that it absolutely is the right time. But the message was never louder or clearer than all of 2012. Just pulling from J.D. Power, they said customers research and decide faster. They're now reporting that the customer sales cycle can be as short as 90 days. Well, that's not a long time. 90 days goes by pretty quickly. Shorter sales cycles, using an increasingly diverse set of online tools. That's the 18 number, right? They're using 18 to 19 sources on average. Search to navigate and compare. Anyone from cars.com in the room? Laurie? So Cars reported that 36% of all consumer traffic to the dealership website had cars in the browsing history. And is it 22% of all leads had cars in the browsing history? And that's just one of 18 sources that people are going to. So people are out there using these sources and making themselves visible and also staying invisible in their search. They expect dealer sites to be as helpful as OEM websites. Question for you. Do you think your wired website or your mobile website answers every question humanly imaginable? What do you think? No way. But we're all people. Fundamentally, we're very much alike. And one of the things that we need as people, when we're searching, especially for things as expensive as a car, is we want to validate search. We want to transition to a real person. That's what we do. And most cars are searched online but purchased offline. So this process of validation and getting personal uncertainties answered is really important. And I do believe it may not be the conscious mind, but it's absolutely the subconscious mind. It's asking questions about all of you when somebody calls. And those questions are little things like, do I like you? Do I trust you? Can you help me? Give me a reason to come in and work with you. Will I be meeting you? They are all the things that are in this customer's mind. And they're sizing us up to make part of that purchase decision. That's what people are doing. They watch videos, which is now that 3.0, to discover and compare brands. Has anyone heard of the new term called showrooming? Anybody? Couple? Just a couple. Yeah, it's kind of this new thing that's going on, they say. I look at it this way. Customers have always showroomed. In the old days, they got in their car and they drove to the next showroom and had another conversation. In Web 2.0, your competition has been maybe an inch away on the internet, maybe a page away, sometimes 2 pages away. I don't think more than 2 pages. But now your competition is right here. Just like I just did, it's in your customer's pocket. It's at their fingertips. That's where your competition is today. Jim Ziegler just wrote an article last week about one of his dealers that took a showrooming event. So what they're saying with showrooming is the 60%, 68% of consumers are using mobile devices to search. Half of that population is searching your competitor's inventory while they are on your lot. It's a big number. Now, you can't do anything about that, But dealing with customers in real time, you can help win some of those battles. And that's what Jim wrote about last week, that one of his dealers, through an instant message, because that's how people communicate when they're communicating silently in a showroom, contacted one of his customers, struck a conversation. While the paperwork was being printed, they snuck out of the dealership and went down to the other store and bought a car. So if you make customers wait, that's when there's risk, because no customer stands still. They're constantly moving. So that's the new phenomenon called showrooming. Relying on those mobile devices to search on the go. That's what people do. So a question you might be thinking, okay, Ed's up here talking about chat, but will customers really use it? Well, we are just one of 17 companies competing for chat business in our country. Just us alone, we served nearly 4.5 million conversations from consumers to dealers last year. Or let me restate that. Nearly 4.5 million people stopped what they were doing in their busy day, and they made a conscious decision to invite their dealer into their conversation because they had something important to ask. Now, if they didn't get those questions answered right there, what does that mean to that dealer's business? That could be a risky proposition if we're not ready to deal with that customer. It's not easy to get there. It takes work, might take some help, but that's one of the challenges. So will they really use it? So we took it a step further. We said, do they really use it? So we had R.L. Polk come into our portfolio. They took 10,000 chats with identifiable information and tracked those conversations to DMV records. And we learned that 1 in 3 people purchased a car in 60 days or less. So we can state for the first time, as a matter of fact, that these people chatting are buying. Not totally available for public information yet, but we have some matchback studies now from OEMs, and we're reporting extremely high conversions to sales, blowing those numbers away. Very interesting. Forgot to advance that slide. There's my R.L. Polk study, 1 in 3 shoppers purchasing. And another interesting point from the R.L. Polk study is that consumers that are chatting with dealers are just as likely to purchase via a chat from the OEM website as they are the advertising site, such as Cars and Trader. In fact, that's where it's actually the highest, which is extremely interesting, and the dealership website. So these people looking and searching inventory, many of them are ready to go. They're ready to make a decision. One more important study that came out last year is the Maritz research study. I kind of knew this all along, but this was kind of nice to see. Maritz research reported the #1 influence in the sale of a car is the salesperson at the dealership. In fact, with all the technology in place, it's actually at an all-time high at 22%. So I start to think about all these things. I think about the dealer's concerns. I think about those numbers that I put up, the 97%. I think about the 18. I think about the 68%. And this puzzle starts to come together. Which leads us, that's me, I'm Ed. It leads us to the brand. The brand, it's who we are, it's what we stand for, including our values, our competencies. On the internet, it's a digital representation of ourself. Like, it is just critical for us to get our faces out there, and they really do matter. In our portfolio, we know that chats that contain faces capture lead information 28% more than chats that do not. That's a pretty significant number. We know that women capture lead information 6% more than men. I think that's an easy one to solve for, because when's the last time a woman has asked you for your name and your phone number? However, men with pictures capture lead information 1% more than women with no pictures in their chats. I was at a presentation, this is going back about 2 years ago, and somebody like me standing on stage said, "You're crazy to put your face on the internet, discrimination, yada yada, people won't come in, they won't buy from you." And Julie came flying across the floor right after the meeting and said, "That guy's crazy. Ed, I sell 1 to 2 cars every single month in, month out, to people that I have no idea who they are. They're part of that 97 number. They remained invisible, but they just showed up and asked for Julie. Maybe they had 3 conversations with Julie. Maybe Julie talked to them and didn't get their name and number. I know we focus so much on the lead, but I got to believe there's value in a meaningful dialogue with a customer, even if we didn't capture the lead information. I was at a dealership in Pennsylvania a year ago, and one of the salespeople, 2 stores, Ford and Toyota, raised his hand in front of all his peers during my presentation and said, "Ed, I sold Mr. So-and-so last Thursday. He came in and asked for me. He acted like he knew me. I had no idea who he was. I was getting nervous because did I fail to log in up?" This is what he's telling his peers. Did I fail? Like, when somebody comes in and knows you and you don't know them, it's just a really bad feeling. So he said, I had to come clean. So I said to the customer, "Sir, I don't know who you are." And the customer said, "Oh, I didn't expect you to. I saw your face on the website. I figured I'd just come in and ask for you." Right? So, I mean, those type of things happen. Maybe he had a conversation with that person before. You know, we know that people validate search on Saturday mornings before they come in. We know those kind of things. So the brand is really important. The mobile devices. Heard Sean talk about it next door a little bit. But these things are really powerful. And in the world of communication, these things in your pocket enable you to communicate with customers everywhere. Back to this position, right? That position, and back to my story of taking my laptop everywhere. The good news is, now that there are 21 of us instead of just Ed, I can go to church on Sunday and not take my laptop in there. But these devices enable us to be connected. That day that I was at that dealership a year ago, I went desk to desk. So I spent from 8 to 9 presenting, and then spent the next 3 hours in the showroom helping people get their mobile devices set up, helping them make sure they're online, making sure everything was working properly. And during that time, and I kid you not, this one fella, he was just leaning up against the car like this, and he didn't move for 1 hour while I'm working in the showroom. It was actually probably more like this. So when I got my chance, I went by and I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "I have the best view of the lot right from here." This was a Saturday morning. So I thought to myself, his peer just told him less than like 2 hours ago that he had somebody come in and ask for him. We've had this technology around for a while. He could have literally logged in to his phone, made himself present and part of all content that people were searching, you know, autotrader.com, cars.com, his Facebook page, Twitter, you know, all these different places, right? Sorry, didn't mean to say Twitter. Craigslist, places like that, and be part of that content by making himself present. What's the chance that somebody may come in and ask for him and still look out the window? So when I got home that day, the first thing I did, it's about an hour and a half drive home, I drove home, I went online and said, how many people visited that dealership while I was there? And the number was 132 unique visitors during the time that I was there. There was 132 people on a Saturday morning visiting that website, validating search, wanting perhaps to speak to somebody to transition to a real person, and the guy leaning against the car was completely invisible. And so were many other folks in the store. And that's a big part of what my message is about today. Extending conversations to text. So that's kind of the new kid on the block. Companies doing it. What we've decided to do is just take it to a different level. But we now have the ability during a conversation, if we detect that a phone number was exchanged during a conversation, we automatically populate a text tool that you can send that customer a text message. Because all chat conversations end, but text messages only end when the customer opts out. So that's another really important way to communicate. And on the subject of mobile, Laurie, taking a page out of listening to you a year ago, just some tremendous ideas, but the ability, having a mobile in your hands, you know, to take a video of yourself after any conversation, a call, an email, shoot a quick video, send it off to the customer. Hey, I'm Ed, I'm the guy here at the store that's going to be working for you today. Look forward to meeting you. Send it out. Another little thing I learned was, you know, when the car is being delivered, maybe take a photo of that car and say, hey, you know, your car just came out of the shop. It looks really great. We have an appointment at 2, and the 2 of us are looking forward to meeting you. Like, these are little things that we can do with these devices that are extremely powerful and tied into this whole communication world. Just thought I'd share this. I found this article just a couple of months ago on USA Today, but all it talked about, and I won't go very deep here, but it just talked about people aren't using voicemail anymore. I mean, how many of us get a voicemail and we never listen to it? We see the number, we just call the person back. Well, that's what people are doing at your house when you try to call them. They're not listening to those messages. I mean, some people do, but the numbers now are pretty high. You know, voicemail is rapidly dying. People are leaving fewer voicemails themselves, and far fewer people are actually ever listening to them. But the way we're structured in the car business, it tends to be a very big part of what we do. Capture lead information, follow up, leave messages, send more emails. Yet we're in a 3.0 world. So real-time readiness, getting ready to play in the real time. Just some of you have seen this before. I know that for those that were in my presentation a year ago, but people still communicate in the heart of the day. That's what I touched on a little earlier. We see customers continuing to shop, that 9, 10, and 11 o'clock hour at night. That's why we always see just a little bit less presence on the third-party websites, because customers are still out there searching. Your marketing. None of this works without calls to action. There has to be calls to action, and not all calls to actions are created equal. They are absolutely not. I just got a cancellation. It happens. It happens in our business. Got a cancellation 60 days ago. Went with a competitor. They took their faces down. No bullshit. I got a phone call about 2 weeks ago. We went from 15 chats a day to 2. Because not all conversions are created equal. Absolutely matters. We know that static icons convert on average between 0.5 and perhaps 1.2%, especially when they're up high in the masthead and when people scroll. We all have those filters built inside our brains that we can't see things that we don't know are there. It's just the way we're designed. If that system was broken, we'd all be crazy. So people may not see a phone number. They may not see a chat icon because they're not looking for it. Now, a chat icon above the fold, maybe in a toolbar that holds its position at the bottom, they tend to convert a little bit higher, 1.2, 1.5%. But animation with a face, it's the way we're designed as human beings, right? Our spindle neurons fire in our brain when we see a face. They just fire off, and we make a connection. So we see average conversion rates in the area of 3.5%. In some metro cities, it's just crazy. North Jersey, New York, conversions just are way up, 8%. So they're different depending on where they are, but the call to actions are really important. On your mobile website, really important to have a call to action on the mobile website. Most mobile websites that were being built in Web 3.0 have the communication tools of Web 1.0 or 2.0. It's amazing. I'll pull up a mobile website and it'll say fax us, or there'll be a phone number, or email us. Fax? Really? On a mobile website? Mobile, showroomers, it's not email. It's not phone calls. It's text-based communication. That's what people are doing. So the call to action is really important. And it leads me to this. So for all of you today, you do have the ability to be present and part of all content that people are searching. You could be everywhere, almost everywhere, and have those conversations when people are ready to have them. So I look at it this way. Having your dealership present and available when the customer is searching is critical if you wish to channel more customers into your sales funnel. Your dealership's ability to make a positive impression at precisely the right time and place to influence consumer buying decisions is the goal of every dollar that you spend in advertising. What can be greater, however, is the power to both influence a customer and at the same time open up a direct line of communication with that shopper and your sales organization. And that is, in essence, the promise of live chat and real-time communication. That is where I believe the money is. It's in the conversation. I took that fancy word and I turned it into a noun, ubiquitousness. Always with you, always connected. So this is just one of our customers. I took a snapshot of a dealer that has bought into the philosophy that I will be present everywhere I can be. Now what's missing from there right now is the mobile website. There's some places for growth, but this person is getting real-time conversations going on Craigslist, Cars, Auto Trader, Facebook, every car listed, Dealer-Centric, the online credit application, and of course their website. And now mobile websites. And we're starting to see some interesting things. Most chat that's put into mobile websites, because mobile websites weren't built to handle chat, are down in the bottom, they're buried someplace. So we've seen some of that, but we've also seen some real interesting stuff. When that icon gets moved up top, and perhaps it's flashing on the mobile website, now we're seeing conversions go up. And I don't know if it's so fresh and so new, but one of my customers, a large group in Virginia, got that chat icon up high on their mobile. There's not enough data really to make a fair assessment, but the conversion rate was 0.7 higher than their land site. The traffic was a lot less, but their wired site had far more traffic, but the conversion was very high on the mobile website. Just one data point. Just going to zip by that. So 3 best practices for presence in marketing. Extend the reach of your calls to action. Just get them out there, all the places that you can afford to get them out there too. Be available to strike a conversation. Share yourself, share the brand. Have a social profile. Do what you can to get that customer to know who you are. And then of course the mobile sites. I think it's a critical next step for dealers. And like I said before, very small percentage of dealers actually have text-based communication in their mobile. Structure. This is the hard part. And if you're talking out there with chat and perhaps people in the room, there's a big debate. Should I answer my chats? Should I have someone else answer the chats? Because of the technology glitch today, I can't show it. I wanted to show a video, but if you get a chance, watch the Moneyball clip. Watch the Moneyball clip, and I forget the person's name, the accountant fella, when he's talking to Billy Beane in the hallway, and he's talking to him about baseball owners have it all wrong. What he's saying is baseball owners were focused on buying players. Think about it. That's what they do. They buy players. But players don't win games. Runs win games. But in order to score runs, you got to get guys on base. That was the philosophy of the A's, a franchise without money. So they built a franchise around finding people that get on base. And they started to win, not having the best players. And when I think about our business, I think we're so focused sometimes on leads. Everything's about a lead, but leads don't sell cars. Conversations sell cars, right? Meaningful wins in dialogue sell cars, not the lead. But yet a large population of our dealers are just so willing to disconnect the customer every time to get the lead, because you think if you get the lead, you're going to win. That's the medieval thinking in baseball, right? It's like buying the player. Leads don't sell cars. People do. So I think about this, the disconnection dilemma. Email has been broken since the day it ever went on a website, because you're taking a person with right now intentions, right now desires, and you're disconnecting that customer to follow up later. Forms, we know that they're dying, right? They're going backwards. Voicemail, that's a disconnect because the customer wanted to converse right now and they can't. And customers just don't sit there and go, great, I left the message, they're going to call me back. The customer moves. Now we got to hit a moving target, which is really, really hard. On the phone, they say it takes 9 to 11 attempts to hit that target. And then when you hit it, the person doesn't have to answer the phone, right? So the customer's total control. And managed chats, there's a big debate. Should I outsource everything or should I do it myself? So there's 17 companies competing for this business in my space. We are one of 2, or maybe 3, that says, you should answer first. And back to that Billy Beane story, I believe that's a big part of it. Which leads me to this. Sometimes in your business, you are not busy. Sometimes you are available. And sometimes you're so busy you can't think straight. So, if this represents all of those people on your website, being present 100% would be the perfect world, because if you're present all the time, you'll be personally greeting all of those customers. And then, of course, answering 100%. But we know that just doesn't happen in dealerships, especially where they are today, based on their training, their belief, all these things. We're not present 100% and we're not answering 100%. So what my competitors would say to you is, you know what, you got to outsource everything because you can't do it, your fingers are fat, you can't think straight, you got to type fast, all these things. You got to be present 24/7. I say this, why not be present as much as you can? If you can be present 75% of the day, do it. If it's 7.5% of the day, do it. Be present as much as you can between you and your staff. And then answer what you can. Because in that model here, you have ups and you have leads. If you can talk to that customer, like that real-time event that happened in Jim Ziegler's article, that could not have happened if we disconnected that customer. They would have stayed and bought at the current store. Those customers that want a deal in real time, we can convert them to leads. We can. And I can tell you what's going to happen. If you have a name prompt turned on, you will get lead information. Anybody can do it. I could do it. I could go work for a store tomorrow and do it. I'll get lead information 80%. Turn the name prompt off, I'll do it. I'll get 45%. I'd bet my house on it. But the money is in the population where there needs to be a dialogue and a conversation. That's where the extra money is. So the battle of ups and leads. So what I encourage all of you, it's really hard. It will take a focus to be present and part of content. Take what you can, and then perhaps outsource what you can't. Structure. Get everybody involved. In our company, that's what we do. We get the whole company involved in these conversations. The whole company's involved. Anybody can answer. And I use this analogy. I'm 6'3", 207 pounds. I think the last time I was here was probably 202. But if I was a football lineman, I would be 6'3", 350 pounds, 375 pounds. And my hands would be clubbed up like with clubs. And I have one job to do. When I'm in my stance, right, I have one focus. When that ball snapped, there's somebody that I have to pick out and I got to block. Depending on the play, that's the play. That is the only thing I'm responsible for. And I think in our business, sometimes we have these things that were these little silos in our dealerships, right? I'm responsible for this. But when that ball snapped, if there's a fumble and that ball happens to roll through my legs, what any football player in America would do is grab that ball, they would stick it under their arms, and they would run their ass off to the end line. And they would refuse to go down. It's going to take like 6 guys to drag them down. But it's not their job, but it's what they're doing. And technology enables us to play the game the same way. Why not have real-time escalation through communication? Why not have a receptionist say, "Hi, how can I help you?" "Yeah, I got a question on this car." "Oh, great, let me see if somebody's available." "Hey, I need somebody to go to their computer and touch it." Forward, send out. Why can't a manager do that? Why can't a parts guy do that? If sales screws up, parts and service is going to suffer. Why can't they jump in? Same thing in service. If the chat's in there and they can't answer, why can't a sales guy answer? Because if the person doesn't get good service, sales is going to suffer one day. Why can't we all play the game? So the technology does enable that to happen. Then, of course, we're not perfect. You can't always work it out. But then you can use companies like us and our competitors to take what you can't. That's the model that can really work. We know just in answering, if you have one agent available, you're going to answer about 50% of your chats. That's the reality because people are busy. 2 agents, it goes to 73%. 3 agents, 83%. 4 or more, 87%. Mobile, still seeing about a 2% increase. Still very low adoption on mobile answering, just an FYI. And then, of course, with outsourcing, right, you can get to that 100%. But it's that real-time communication, like they're the pieces that you miss out on just a little bit. Involve the whole team. Get everyone involved. Real-time first, follow-up second. Add that to your store. It's a challenge. And maybe this one, who has the responsibility in the store to manage presence? We look at that in our company. Who's present now? Real-time escalation, answering a dealer's question is the most thing. So if a customer comes in from chat and that salesperson isn't busy, get it to a manager or another salesperson that can jump in and answer the question. Just trying to do that right now. And tactically, it's important to answer fast, less than 10 seconds. Fostering trust. Faces. There was a great article published, it's actually several years ago, from the University of Michigan. And they used this thing called the prisoner's dilemma test. A little complicated, but to summarize, it took a company environment across the United States with different people, and they were involved in these little tasks of negotiation. And what they learned in this study is that people that met face-to-face built an equally high level of trust in the other person when they were chatting, when they knew who the person was via their picture and their resume. So when you met face-to-face, you knew who the person was, you had the resume. Chat, you knew their resume, face-to-face. But people that were emailing never got close. They never built that level of trust. So that's really important. Qualifying the opportunity, like anything else, like any phone call, say hello, state the name, get it out quickly. We know that names that are exchanged early in the first couple lines of a text-based conversation have a greater likelihood of total lead capture. People tend to respond in kind. Hey, I'm Ed, how can I help you? I'm Sally. Hey, I'm Ed Parkinson, how can I help you? You'll get more, first and last names. That's just the way we're wired. Have a dialogue. In these text-based conversations, hey, I'm Ed, who are you? I'm Mike. Hey, Mike, in case we get disconnected, can I have your last name? Don't do it, right? That's not where the person is today in 3.0. I'd roll with Mike and build a relationship, answer the questions. After all, there's a 90% chance he's just going to show up anyway. I may never get his lead information, but I'm going to try to help him. Moving to a phone call, I think, is perfectly logical and acceptable. It's just easier sometimes. You may have to make some decisions. Maybe you want to see a little bit of the dialogue via texting because it helps you understand what your people are saying and what they're thinking. But it's certainly reasonable to say, would it be easier for you to speak on the phone? I do that all the time. I don't close the chat. I would keep it open in the event I want to send something. Maybe I want to send a link. I want to send a video. I want to do something like that. So I'll keep that open. Certainly reasonable to ask for a test drive. And Laurie Foster, I did add that one from you from a year ago. I added that to my list. But the smart device, I would ask for it. What a great idea. In all of our conversations, email, phone calls, what smart device would you like me to send the information to? Because then you're in the 3.0 world. You're in the video world where you can shoot a video and have response that way. Best practices, mobile and hybrid answering. Just to define hybrid, it's a growing thing, popularity in the marketplace. It's the ability for your team to answer first, but what you can't, you have a resource to answer second. So you take the ups, third-party company takes the leads. And that's a good best practice to go into your business. Interactions rather than transactions. Reviewing conversations and outcomes. What a great resource. Call Source is out there with a wonderful product, Dealer Saver, where they take the recorded phone call, they put it in writing, and about an hour later, you get that message to see what happened. Well, this happens every time in text-based communication, right? Because it's sent out to everybody in real time. What a great resource to understand what your people are saying. Training development, just a wonderful tool for that. And of course, I think the most important thing is empowering your people, because empowered people work better. They work smarter, they work harder, and getting, encouraging our people to perform. And I'll end on this note, but we are in a Web 3.0 environment. That's where we are today. I'm encouraging you, challenging you to go back to your store and say, what can we do to add some structure and process to communicate and really take a hard look at real time? It is hard. A year ago, I went to this one dealer group in Virginia, and for 2 days, I presented like this to every customer-facing person in their dealership. I think it was 8 presentations over 2 days. They brought me back this year, same thing, 2 days, 8 presentations over 2 days. Taking it serious, the last presentation that I did, which was at about 6 o'clock at night, this TV crew, film crew comes in, they're miking me up, they put lights on me. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, we're videoing this presentation. They demand from their employees a 90% answer rate, or you won't work there. They demand their dealerships be online 80%. Now they're matching up visiting to hours. In other words, they are starting to match up when they're going to have people work from home to match up when they're site visitors. Like, they are creating a real-time environment. And there's other stores doing that. That one's fresh in my mind. Your customers are out there. Let's go meet them. Thanks, everybody. Any questions from anyone? All right then. Thanks for your time.